All right, so you know, we look at the traditional thing is we got to have the government involved to try to reduce crime, but we've also learned that private citizens can do it on their way. So we got some market forces, you know, free from government. We got some market forces that can lead to reductions in crime too. People self-police themselves, right? Neighborhood watch, whatever. So there's different alternatives, or do we, you know, leave it to the courts, the court systems, and the police system to handle it? And then we've got these other mechanisms that might be ways to reduce crime that are a little more indirect by raising education. So check out the number of crimes here. We've got two categories: personal crime and property crime. So with personal crime, the intent is really to injure for the most part, right? Murder, rape, aggravated assault, robbery. Now robbery is a little bit of a mix, because robbery is when somebody's coming up to you and mugging you, and you might get injured in the meantime. Burglary, you're sneaking into somebody's house, and the intent is really to steal something that's valuable. So auto theft, larceny. All right, so what's crime done over time?
It's gone down.
Yeah. So we've got number of crimes per 100,000 people. So again, with data, when you guys do your papers, be thinking about how they accounted for things that we need to control for, like population. Otherwise, if we allow the population to grow, crime's going to grow too, right? So we have to normalize that. So they did this in this case by looking at the crimes per 100,000 people. And we have a peak here in the 80s. What did we learn in Freakonomics about what might be the cause of some of the reductions? Anybody remember that?
Abortion.
Yeah, abortion. Legalizing abortion was what Levitt did. So that if you look 18 years later into the future, crime started to fall right at about that time. So here is some income statistics. Here's different regions, and whether you live in the central city, suburban, or rural. And we can look at the violent crimes. I just didn't want to digest all the data at one time, so I left this one off. So what do we notice with crimes as income goes up? Decrease, right? So we got this decrease here. These numbers are falling, just eyeballing again. An economist doing a research paper on this is going to be maybe more sophisticated with that, not just look at the average levels or something. There might be some other things going on. Different regions, fairly consistent, right? So not too far apart maybe. Central city, where do we want to live? Where do the crimes happen? Central city, suburbia, and it's falling as we head out to the rural areas. What happens with the property thefts? We see a similar trend. Burglaries, a little bit more in the rural areas. Anything else jump off the page at you that looks interesting?
Midwest is decently high.
Midwest?
Yeah. Well, compared to the regions.
Yeah. For theft?
We're second highest.
Yeah.
Both for theft and for the violent, 23.6 versus 25.2.
Yep.
It raises me that two of the highest groups for theft are the extremely poor, which kind of makes sense, and then the people on this thing that are considered extremely wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Would that include,
They're the ones with the property, right?
Like,
Potentially.
would that include like some of the stuff with like embezzling?
I feel like that'd be like white collar.
Probably. It should be lumped in there. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you might get, I see what you're saying. Yeah, might get into embezzlement and other things where you've got people who are high-income people stealing from other high-income people.
Well, in the Midwest, would it be safe to say that people are a little more spread out than that necessarily?
I think so, yeah. Issues like that. Yeah.
Distance would probably, I would think, would deter crime instead of, you think proximity
So this is one way of presenting data, and this is what you'll see in any other discipline, sociology or other places. They'll like throw this data up here and they'll say, oh, well, yeah, look at this. So this is where it gets a little bit different. We want to say why. What are the underlying forces that drive that result? And this is part of where your thesis question or those sorts of ideas. You look at the world on this and you say, is that telling the right picture? Or I would think as income goes up, theft goes down. Why? I have a theory that says that, but why is that not happening? And what? So economists tend to put on their little investigative hat, trying to figure out what's going on with the world. Okay, here's some dollars. How much money do we spend in the criminal justice system? Private prevention measures, right? So locking your doors, sophisticated locks, buying cameras, $39 billion. Victim costs, kind of out of pocket, spending time in the hospital if you got harmed physically, $91 billion. Opportunity cost of the incarcerated, kind of an interesting one. If you're in jail, you're not working, right? So economists look at how much money are we losing in the economy.
Basis?
What's that?
Is this being measured on a yearly basis?
Yes, I think this one's yearly. So a lot of money tied up potentially. Again, incentives like, can we make society better? If we could reduce crime, then we could hopefully add to some things that would be a better spot to put it. All right, so here's our model. You've got a chance of you're a crook, or maybe you can be legal or you could be a crook. All right? If you're a crook, you supposedly have higher income than what you could do legally. Otherwise, kind of why would you be doing it? Unless you're just a theft nut, right? So we can talk about people who just get off on stealing stuff, that extra non-monetary benefit that they get. But for the most part, they probably can't legally do something and make as much money as they can with crime. But then you've got the other state of the world, whereas that might land them in jail, and they can't do anything. They lose their freedom, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of thinking about this game of uncertainty of the criminal. And we've got a utility function that's increasing at a decreasing rate, like we've seen with beer and pizza and other things. But here we're just generically putting our income, so that the last dollar earned doesn't give me as much benefit, as much satisfaction as the 50th dollar earned, right? Same old thing we've seen in class time and time again. And then we've got the expected utility from crime, because we don't know if we're going to get busted or not. So if I don't there's two states of the world that we're dealing with. If I'm a crook and I don't get busted, I get $144 worth of income, which gives me 12 units of satisfaction, 12 utils. If I land myself in jail, and this is the way the textbook walks us through this is kind of a lifetime analysis, that you'll be on probation and that you'll be kind of screwed up. So you're not going to completely kill your income forever, but you're going to miss a chunk of your life being incarcerated. And so that gives you less satisfaction. So what should I do? So if you've got a 50-50 shot of getting 144 or 64, what is your expected utility from crime?
144 minus 64 divided by 2?
No. So the expected utility, your expected total utility, 104. How'd you get it?
You take the probability of one event times the outcome plus the probability of
All right, so that's the thing with this probability stuff. And this is the general formula that we have for all of this is, now I want my, so the expected utility equals the probability of an event occurring times the income associated with event number 1, state of the world 1, let's call it, plus the probability of event number 2 in the state of the world number 2. So I'm either going to be in reality in the state of the world number 2, 144, or the state of the world number 1, which was 64. And I've got a 50-50 shot. I do the weighted average of those two things, and I get 104. So 50% of 144 is 72. 72 plus 32. 72 plus 32, 104.
It's the same answer either way.
Yep.
If you add them up and divide by 2.
Yeah, you can add them up and divide by 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you were taking the average of those two. I wasn't tracking with you.
Just because it's 50.
Yes.
Right.
Because it's a 50-50 shot. That's the thing you'd have to be careful of. Because
Right.
where we're going to go next is if we increase the probability,
Right, or decrease the probability.
yeah, then we're going to shift that number around. Now, what about point C? What's that saying in this picture?
It said you could either gain 44 or lose 96, so
Okay.
you're starting at 100.
Yeah, so this is what we know with certainty. This is the job that I could get legally,
Oh,
right? So this is my income. This is my legal income. How they set it up, you guys didn't quite have all the background. It might have been part on that slide, was to say, what if I could engage in an illegal activity that would give me an extra 44 bucks? So maybe this is the embezzlement one. I'm making 100 grand a year, but if I skim the till, I can make 144. But if I get busted, I drop down to 64. And so this is my utility that I can get with certainty, or I have this ability to have an expected utility of 10 and an expected income of 4. So what causes the people to get into crime or not get into crime depends on these states of the world. All right, one more thing here before we go, because some of this gets a little confusing. So they got this chart where we start to explore the issues. The probability of prison, the amount of prison time, which is set by the judicial system, right? So if you steal a car, you're facing 5 to 10 years, or are you facing 1 to 3 years? So that's a variable that's at our disposal to alter the expected utility payoff for whether you should do crime or not. So your net income is your legal income plus the loot that you get, right? And so then we look at the probabilities associated with each. So our baseline case was staying lawful all the way across the board. This one put in a little bit higher income to see what your utility would be. And then we've got the utility of a successful crime. So we get that 44 bucks. Or we get the prison time, which drops us down to 10 and 9 under different cases. So as you go through the reading, so what I'd like you to do is hit the reading for chapter. It's a fun chapter. I think you guys will like it, actually. And then we'll continue on with it on Tuesday.
Did you just want us to
come
walk
back.
over the callbacks to your office today before 5?
Yes. Slide them under my door if I'm not there.
When are you going to be in your office?